Hello, today we have another amazing client interview with Laurier, another successful student of the Software Engineering Accelerator. Now, some background on Laurier. He actually started as a biomedical engineering major, so he spent multiple years not even doing computer science. Yet, we were still able to get him an incredible software engineering internship in less than 8 weeks through the Software Engineering Accelerator. And it paid over $30 an hour, which is an incredible outcome for someone's first internship switching from biomedical engineering. This is yet another amazing result out of dozens from the accelerator. And the best part about Laurier is that he really committed to the process. He showed up to every single call, he did the homework, he locked in, and look what we got. He got an amazing result through the program. Here's Laurier. So Laurier, tell me, where were you before you joined the accelerator? I believe you joined probably 2-3 months ago. So tell me your background, major, and where you were.
Sure. So I am in my fourth year university, but I had a little bit of a long road to get where I am right now. I started in bioengineering at McGill. I studied that for 2 years, and I studied during that with a minor in computer science. Realized through that process that I really liked the tech field a lot more, and I was basically taking mostly computer science and like more tech-focused courses as well, and basically kind of a pseudo biology degree. So I realized, okay, I need to like switch this up. So I changed to electrical engineering with like 3 computer science minors. So kind of essentially created my own double major, electrical engineering and computer science. Did that for a year, was pretty busy with courses, and then struggled quite a bit in that first year to get an internship because I also started like mid-March. So that was like not great planning on my part. I also just didn't really know how to go about it too. So it was kind of lack of knowledge, kind of poor planning and stuff like that. Ended up just not having an internship, taking one course during that summer. And now coming into this year, I was ready. Like this was my second to last year before graduating. So it'd be my last internship opportunity. So I knew like this is the time to really go hard to make sure this happens. And so I was kind of trying to research this. I did a few OAs, a little bit of lead code, but not much. I'm still kind of feeling a little bit lost. Came across your videos and ended up joining your, I think, email list where I saw that you kind of had some tips on kind of going about the internship shirts and kind of mentioned the accelerator program. And I thought like, what the heck? And so kind of got on the call with you to kind of learn a little bit more what it was about. And I decided to join.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that background. Tell me
Yeah.
more in specific, a couple of clarifying questions here. So you said you started more of like the biomedical, electrical engineering
Sure.
side of things. So specifically, how many years had you spent doing that biomedical biology degree before deciding that you were going all in on the computer science side of things?
So I was in biomedical engineering for 2 years while
Mhm.
taking a computer science minor. So in that course of things, I took kind of like a year's worth of computer science and more like kind of like foundational math engineering course you take anywhere else, and probably like a year of like more biology, biomedical courses. And so it was kind of 2 years in that program specifically, but it was about like half of that was spent taking things that would kind of apply to what I'm doing now.
Got it. So 2 years more biomedical engineering, minor computer science, then a
Yeah,
full
yeah.
year of electrical engineering. And then is this your fourth year currently in school?
Yeah. Well, so it's been 2 years I'm in electrical engineering, but because I'm doing like all the minors in computer science at the same time, it's like half my course is electrical engineering, half of them are computer science.
Got
And so
it.
it's my fourth year in engineering at McGill.
Okay, got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And you said last year you had tried to go for an internship, but it didn't really work out because you were just kind of unfamiliar with the process. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially I was kind of unfamiliar with the process. Like even like leak code stuff, like I didn't know that many people that were kind of like applying. At least people I knew weren't necessarily talking about it, and kind of I think we're also a little bit lost, to be completely honest. There was no one that was like talking about quant or anything even remotely close to that. It was just straight up like, oh, you applying? Yeah, I applied to like 50 on LinkedIn, and kind of like, I don't know, hope this goes well.
Mhm.
And so I was taking 18 credits as well to kind of from catching up from kind of having switched programs. And so like it was like during March break that I like started to get into that and like super panicked, and it just didn't work out. I had like one interview that was more of a like hardware-ish electrical engineering thing that ended up not working out, but I wanted to do programming regardless, and so that was kind of the experience of it not going well. But it was my fault, but also just the lack of knowledge.
Got it. Makes sense. So before the program, you had done this biomedical engineering stuff. You went into this electrical engineering degree. You were kind of trying to get an internship, sent out a bunch of applications, had that one interview. Maybe you looked into leak code a little bit, but you were still largely, I guess, unfamiliar with the entire process. So, kind of going into when you found my videos, what actually motivated you to look for external help? Because I feel like a lot of people, they'll try on their own. Maybe they succeed, maybe they don't. And then they're like, you know what? I'm not going to look for help. I'm just going to keep doing this over and over and over again until it works. So what motivated you to actually reach out and book that call to learn more about the program?
Um, I forget the exact timeline of things, but I saw a couple of your videos. I think one of them might have been about um, the I think it was like you're doing leak code wrong and kind of you gave your list of like one of the 50 questions that like were a little bit more important because even like looking at the neat code 150 and stuff like that, it's not like a terrible amount. I'm about halfway through the list now, but like when you're also like super stressed about course and being like, okay, holy shit, 150 questions, like what do I focus on? Even that was like pretty overwhelming. So I think it started in that video, and I think it was because you mentioned that, oh, sign up for the email list, get the get the 50 questions. That kind of got me in that pipeline. But in terms of getting help, of course, kind of watching videos in terms of getting that help. In terms of the direct help, well, I realized the stakes were pretty high, obviously, since it'd be my last opportunity to get an internship, and it's kind of thing that can set you up a lot better for the future. I'm also definitely not against like investing myself. I know it's super important. Um, I, I'm almost 100% sure you do too, especially because it's on school. But I watch Alex Hormozy a decent amount, and so he talks constantly about the S&Me 500. I think he's mentioned that kind of as a little term, kind of invest in yourself. It pays off in dividends, and so I could kind of tell that there was a lot I was missing. And in terms of kind of what you're presenting, it seemed like it was super comprehensive. And there's definitely these things I was kind of missing, how you go about leak code questions, behaviorals as well, which I think had the potential to be pretty good on. And I think I could be pretty well spoken. But I remember doing our first one as well. I was pretty confident, absolutely felt like I tanked. It wasn't terrible, but it was kind of the experience of just kind of getting humbled and then kind of figuring out, learning what you don't know as well, too, because often you think you know some things you don't actually. And kind of that whole result of things, knowing that it's a really big process and that I want to invest in myself, and I think it's going to pay off. That was kind of my mindset and kind of what brought me into the accelerator.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes sense. And also, I didn't know that you follow Alex Ramosi. I totally agree with that. I've invested in so many just educational products, coaching programs of my own. So 100%. I don't think, obviously, some have been better than others, but I honestly don't think I've gone wrong but with any of them. I definitely got the value back in dividends for every single educational thing I've invested in, as long as you use it, which is obviously a
Yeah,
great.
no, of course. And that's part of the program too, is that like you also have, they're like super strict rules, but it's also like, if you get something out of it too, and you think like, okay, a refund policy, but you're not going to have to really use it, but they should at least have that in the back of your mind. You have to do 20 lead code questions, 20. So yeah, get all your referrals, do all your applications, and it kind of, the accountability is a really big part of that process too, to
Oh,
realizing
yeah.
that's just, yeah, that was such a big part of that I realized the external system was just such a huge thing I didn't mention, but yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's another part of it too, which is like we, I mean, we wouldn't be able to run this if everybody wasn't getting their internships, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, but it is the case where almost that push, which is like, hey, if I just follow this process, if I just stick to the protocol, do the homework, show up to the call, submit my lead code problems, do the homework, um, then like, if it doesn't work out, then I'm good, right? But actually, kind of on a side thing, you were like amazing with that. I remember even near the end, you were like super keyed in, like how many calls did I go to? You were showing up regularly, used all of the mock interviews, roughly speaking. You were doing the homework. So I think like a lot of it is the fact that you were one of those killer students. And honestly, I know who's going to get their internships from day one. I can see like within month one, if someone's showing up to the calls, they're doing the work, they're paying attention, they're learning, they're taking notes. Immediately, I'm like, this guy's going to get an internship within month 2 or 3, faster than most people. So you were definitely one of our best students in that regard.
Are you sure about that though? To be honest, I think I didn't show up to like only 1 or 2 calls within the first month. So
Oh, yeah.
I think it was near like the beginning of exam period I was kind of
Yeah.
going into. I think I just failed the midterm too, which I then had to like grind. I mean, I had a whole story about like me
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
back from kind of adversity or whatever, and had a good story about that. But like stressing about finals and all that. So like the first month was me kind of trying to just like manage it, and the next month was like after I finished exams, which just went super hard into
The
it.
next month. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it was like by mid-December that I written really hard and made sure now you're gonna like remember me.
For sure. Yeah, I know it was the second month. I just remember seeing your name a lot. So that was really solid. But yeah, I guess before we go into your experience in the program itself, did you have any
Yeah.
hesitations about joining? Any thoughts about that, or were you pretty much all in from day one?
Um, I mean, the program seems super comprehensive. Like the fact that kind of it was everything from lead code to behaviorals to referrals, and even just kind of learning how holy shit, like you can ask a random stranger to refer you and like increase your chances 7x. It's just like all that stuff made me like pretty confident that like this was going to be a good experience. At the same time, even like despite the mentality I know like the S&P 500, I want to invest in myself. It was the most I'd ever spent on anything like educational wise. I was in like I guess my actual school, but like outside of my university education degree and stuff like that, that was the most I'd ever spent. So like definitely had this level of nervousness, but at the end of the call, I just thought kind of, you know what, fuck it. Like I think like worst that happens is that somehow I get ripped off and then doesn't work out. Turns out it's nothing. It seems like I'll at least learn something from this. And like worst case scenario, this is like going through this process. I'm at least gonna kind of get a little bit more engaged into it and stuff like that. Not kind of feel a little bit passerby that like, oh, I should be doing a little bit of this and kind of. I knew regardless it was gonna really get me committed to the process, and so like it felt like a big investment. And afterwards, I can definitely say it was like definitely worth it. But I think that was the main hesitancy. That was like it was definitely at least a lot for me, but it seemed like this was the time to do it. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Let's talk about your experience in the program itself. As you know, we cover a bunch of things. We go resume, LinkedIn, referrals,
Sure.
interviews, leak code. So kind of let's actually step through that. How did you find like the resume and LinkedIn help was in the program?
Yeah, sure. So start with the resume. I definitely like had a resume that I thought like the bullet points were like decent going into it, but also because I didn't have a very good, like, I didn't have any like computer science internships going to the program, right? I mean, that's kind of why I joined because I hadn't had any of those experiences, right? But actually presenting what I had in like an as compelling way as possible, right? Without like trying to like blatantly make up some Google internship or whatever, just it definitely felt like I didn't have much to present. And it definitely helped me kind of almost in part almost get rid of my imposter syndrome because like I felt like I had this kind of iffy resume that I almost felt embarrassed kind of like giving out at the career fair. I was like going into it like even just like the formatting of it too, like my sense of aesthetics is absolutely terrible. And so like you can like tell looking at a resume too that like the aesthetics, isn't everything, but it's part of that professional look and stuff like that. Even that felt a little bit like overwhelming going to that. So like having that like step by step going through it, like presenting it in this way, like list all your courses, just all list the projects in a way that's more compelling, all that kind of way to kind of wrap it around. It's kind of, I think, definitely made my resume way better. And I mean, I could tell I was getting probably like a higher percentage of like OAs or whatnot afterwards, but also just kind of gave me a little bit of that kind of confidence to kind of really push through and not feel like almost embarrassed trying to apply to internships that I feel like I belong to or anything like that. And actually on that note, I think also listing the list of relevant courses on my CV was probably actually not probably it was a good chance that at least helped me get the internship that I got because a good like maybe like third of the internship was spent talking about reinforcement learning, which is a class I just started taking. But like taking your advice was like take those good classes you're taking, put it immediately on your resume. And so I'd taken like 2 weeks of this course, and honestly, I'd only like listened to the first week of lectures at that point too. But it was just enough that like when the person was asking me questions, I could say, I just started taking it. But we talked about I think the exploitation trade-off in reinforcement learning, and because it's more of a graduate level thing, I think they thought it was a little bit impressive. And so just these little things that I think can help you, and I think in my case actually might have been the thing that got me over the ledge, but you never know for sure. But that whole thing kind of made me feel good about my resume, which I think was a part that definitely need to definitely wasn't nothing to think that like, okay, I feel proud of this almost, and I can go in the world and kind of fight for myself. In terms of LinkedIn, it didn't feel like super overwhelming once the resume was kind of put together because you kind of just like, take the bullet points, you just kind of put it there. Photo, I think I had a decent one I took over the summer. Honestly, like I was gonna at some point like take the photo in a professional environment. I didn't get around to doing it, but I thought it was decent enough. But like now too, I'm kind of thinking about okay, next internship, how to optimize this. I already like found some spots I'm gonna get like my good picture at. So like just knowing how to do it in the future better as well is super big. But in terms of profile, I felt like the resume kind of translate to that. But then of course LinkedIn actually reaching out to people, that I think was one of the really big game changers, was kind of having a profile that was really nice and then being able to reach out for referrals, which I think we'll get into later. But that was kind of my thoughts and experience, the whole resume and LinkedIn portion of
Yeah,
things.
definitely. I think a lot of people have this. I mean, I've done hundreds of those consultation calls, right? And I ask every single person on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is your resume? And they all say 7 or 8 out of 10. And, and I can confidently say I've maybe seen a handful of actual 8 out of 10s. resumes on day one before I fix it. So happy to see that you found the feedback was helpful. And yeah, 100%. It's always important to work in your resume. Let's go into the referral generation systems. So
Sure.
big part of the program, referrals are really important. They really improve your chances of getting an internship or a full-time job. So how
Yep.
did you feel like the referral help was in the accelerator?
Um, in terms of the way it directly impacted the position I got, so we'll go to that. I'm pretty sure that the referral actually didn't help for this specific one. That at the company, I ended up getting two different people to refer me, but the role I actually got to apply to like 15 to 20 on their website wasn't one I'd gotten a referral to. So I was kind of like, okay, sure, why not? But I don't know if they see them somewhere in their system. There might be a little bit of that too. So may or may not have helped me in this specific case I got. But in terms of referrals, I could definitely tell that it was at least the place I was getting referrals was getting the OA after not necessarily every case, but it was definitely increasing the chance of that happening. And part of the Accelerate 2 kind of teaches you like how to get referrals from the network that you already have. And I remember going into when you asked like, do you have any connections? I basically said, no, I don't really. And then kind of going through the exercises like, okay, but really think, you're probably wrong about this. Go through your like LinkedIn connections, go through your friends, think really hard. And ended up getting like the first month and a half's worth of referrals was almost only from people I knew, which I thought like was a bit mind blowing because I thought I had no one, but then you reach out to people and people are actually really happy to give you referrals. And it's like, okay, then great. But then actually that was already pretty scary, but not as bad because, you know, you already know the people, have some connections. And then reaching out to strangers on LinkedIn, for me at least initially, was like super terrifying. Going to the fact that like I have to reach out to someone I never know and then get them on a phone call. It seems so awkward. And can you even do this? You know, it feels almost illegal as a kind of thing, but like it's totally fine. And being forced to get 10 of them a month kind of forces you to kind of get those reps in. And now I can definitely say that like if I had to apply to an internship, it'd be like, yeah, it's whatever. Just reach out, get the internships. And like that level of comfort, again, being forced to go through the reps, I think was a really big part of that process. Not just learning the knowledge, but being forced to go out and actually apply. That was really huge and definitely got me over that, you know, basically rational fear. But yeah, learning that system of just kind of having a nice template, reaching out, and then realizing that like worst case, they just never answer you, which is like whatever. But like most of the times people answer you, like people are actually mostly pretty nice and will give you referrals. Like that's been my experience with it. Sometimes it's just like, oh, do you want a referral? And you'd be like, yes. And then it's like, cool. It can be that simple sometimes. So yeah, for me, that really felt huge. Ultimately, it wasn't the thing that got me to the edge probably in this case, but I definitely feel like it's a tool I have in the arsenal next time that like I feel like talking to people around me too, they're like, oh, I'm dangerous now. Like I can go about this and like going like, you know, my plans next, looking at FANG, low quant type of thing, also because I'm getting pretty good at leak code and whatnot. Like it feels a lot more achievable. And I think that confidence is really huge actually going to that process. And I think the referrals are probably one of the bigger parts of that kind of giving that confidence in that whole process.
100%. I think most people know that referrals are important, kind of in the back of their head, but I don't think most people understand their actual systems you can run and get feedback and iterate
Yeah.
on so that you can just generate these kind of infinitely, right? And I'm confident that even with this specific offer, maybe the exact referral didn't help. Going forward, now that you're going to be going for more big tech internships, quant fang, the referral system is in your back pocket now. And now you can just throw that out for any industry, right? Like let's say you
Yeah.
go back to do biomedical stuff. Bro, you can just get a referral to any company in the world, essentially, right? And just 5 to 7 extra chance of getting an offer there. So super happy that the referral system was useful and you ended up using it and will use it in the future. Now,
I definitely feel actually it's a skill that like a lot of the things learned in this program like will translate like 10 years from now too. Like this kind of skill that like you build it up early and feel like it'll pay dividends like not just next year, but the year after that. Cause like you go for probably multiple jobs in your lifetime, you probably just don't have one. And it's kind of this skill that like even people that like have been in the industry super long time probably don't have those skills. Like some do, but the fact that like you can be part of that somewhat selective group to build those skills early like feels huge. And like talking around, talking about like, oh yeah, I got a referral from some I don't know. People are like, you could do that? Like that seems illegal. It's crazy. And stuff like that. To know like you have those skills is really big and like not like to toot your own horn, but like it really will like help in the long run. I can feel that difference. So like I was really happy with that.
awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Let's go into the interview prep. So the program, as you know, also helps with coding and behavioral interviews. So how did you think that help was?
In terms of interview, sorry, behavioral and kind of
Yeah,
lead coding,
yeah,
we go through
coding
both
and
those. Yeah. Okay, sure. Start with the coding one. Going to that, I'd done. 'Cause it kind of took me a while to get into the kind of using my coaching calls. The first month was like I basically did no leak code, and then as soon as I finished my exam, I had like I think I had like 5 days to submit all my homework for the first month. Had like almost no applications, almost no referrals, and then like no leak code questions. So immediately got into the grind and realized that like honestly, just doing like 25 lead code questions and you feel like I'm pretty comfortable with this. And like obviously, like you learn more things and whatnot, but even just doing those first 25 and then kind of feeling you have that in the back of your pocket, then going through the first interview, it definitely felt like a lot more comfortable. And it was able to focus on actually working through the problem, kind of the way you can like interview instead versus just actually thinking on the spot and then kind of like freaking out because it's a leak code question, which you're bad at leak codes, you can't do this. So, like building those skills, I think helped kind of going through the first interview. So the first interview actually went like really well. Essentially, Nikhil at the end said, "Okay, that was really good, basically perfect. You talked really well the entire time. I just had to kind of like blab the entire time, which I think I'm pretty good at. And so just talk, 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 talk. Small error here, which I had to correct, and then went pretty well. And so like that felt pretty good afterwards. Like the leak code practice, which I think was good that I had done a little bit more beforehand because it allowed me to kind of refine those interview skills later on. So did that for the first one. Second one also went really well. Was able to kind of solve the question pretty well. It was pretty easy, and was able to kind of talk through it. Also really good feedback. By the third one, that's when he was like, okay, let's like step up the level. And the problem was definitely a lot harder. And I was able to find the ideal solution. But one thing also I realized was that I was getting decently good at leak code and I was getting decently good at the process. But then when it really came time to push both at the same time, it did start to break down. And so because I had to focus a little bit more than before, and it was kind of a question that was pretty hard I hadn't seen before, then my skills that like had been previously been building of like being able to kind of go through the problem, explain the edge cases, all that did start to break down. So I realized like I was kind of starting to like, feel myself like, okay, this is going pretty good. But then I realized, okay, you're not perfect, kind of like constantly push you and then maybe kind of bring you back down a peg. So that was a good part of the process that like was able to build me up, but then also like realize that despite the fact that you have your skills there, you really need to make sure it's like systematized. So then by the fourth one, I really made sure that like it was once again a hard problem, and I was able to, kind of first really in my head have a process. I realized it hadn't gone well the first time. Go through each of the things, edge cases, explain the problem, clarify questions, and then you go through it and then kind of try to explain the different things. So I think the process was pretty good. I think it started off pretty well, and so I definitely felt that the code was good for me. But then kind of going through a little bit of those trials and tribulations was really helpful part of the process too. That like whatever you do, don't forget that process. And I think that was really helpful to like have that in the back of your head. That was a little bit everywhere, but hopefully that kind of answered
Yeah, definitely.
thoughts on the leak code.
Awesome.
Do you want me to go into behavioral next too?
Yeah,
kind of what my thoughts on that were?
about the behavioral interview. So we worked together directly on the behavioral side.
Yeah.
How did you think that was?
Kind of like what I alluded to before, going to the first one. Admittedly, like I kind of looked through the questions. I prepared a few little stories, and in general, I feel like I'm pretty good at talking. Like I'm one of those nerds, maybe a little bit more on the extroverted side. I can kind of like I'm pretty good. I've always been a decent writer, so I think I can communicate well, and so I kind of knew what had to be done. But I think I was definitely still too cocky going into that, and so I think those mock interviews were good at taking me down a peg and realize like, okay, you can do this, but like there's a process to go through, and like especially like the STAR framework, which interviewers definitely want to see. Like if you don't follow this, like you're not doing well, even if you can like talk for 3 minutes. Like that doesn't mean you're saying things that are good. And so after the third one, the first interview, definitely felt like, okay, I'm definitely not as good as I think I am, which I think was good for me because you realize that like it doesn't matter. I think I have some skills in communication, but like it doesn't mean I don't have to practice. It means like if anything, it might mean you have to practice more because you already have these like ingrained patterns that you have to work through. And so it's definitely after the first interview, it felt like, okay, I'm glad this wasn't an actual interview because it probably wouldn't have gone well. So that was a big thing. And so then going through the process, kind of studying the different questions, and a big part of it was being forced to kind of create stories for the different questions. I think we have 30 of them ish in the program, and learning how what you have, I think like 5 stories covers almost all the questions, which is kind of crazy to think. Like you don't need to have 30 different stories connected to different things, and kind of creating a process was a really helpful part of it all to realize like sure, ideally you want to prepare a lot for every single interview, but if you have limited time, limited resources, like there's a checklist of things you need to go through. Have a story about something technical, about teamwork, about failure, all those kind of little things. And definitely felt like then after the second and then third behavioral, like, okay, like I can do this. There's a framework I can need to, and a process to go through. And I felt definitely felt really good after that. And actually, I think our third behavioral was right before
Mm.
the actual interview I had for the current role that got accepted to. And I think it went pretty well. Like all the behavioral questions, I was able to kind of go through the STAR framework, and there was questions. I think one was teamwork one, which had answered like 2 or 3 times with you already, and so it felt like this is a breeze. Like I prepared, and maybe it was a little bit of lucky, but I think there's that saying that was it something with like luck and opportunity and some like
Oh yeah,
preparation
luck
is
is where
was it?
preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. That anyways, so definitely a little bit of that in the process. And so yeah, ultimately I think it was a really good experience to kind of understand how to go through it. Once again, get the accountability of like this isn't going to be easy for you, so make sure you prepare, or else like
Mhm.
we're going to give you shit and say like you need to do better. You can do better, and I think that was really helpful. And now I feel like I'll definitely need to prepare more and practice my behaviors more in the future. But I feel confident that like whatever the role is, if I give like a good hour or two of preparation, I can give really good effort and definitely feel like I'll have a good shot at whatever role it is.
Definitely. So yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think obviously I do this or I run this and I see so many people come in. Everyone thinks they're good at behaviorals. Everyone's like, oh, I don't need to worry about behaviorals. I've heard probably 20 people say, oh, I speak well, I communicate well, I write well. I don't need to think about behaviorals. And I can confidently say, I don't think I've had a single student of this program in their first behavioral just killed it. Everybody struggles with it. So definitely something that I'm happy. And I definitely noticed you had improved and you actually got really good by behavioral 3 or 4, which is why kind of what I said early on. I felt like you were kind of one of those killer students who was actually using it, but then taking the feedback and improving because I could see that improvement in the process when it came to 3 or 4. Couple more minutes left, or actually 2 minutes
Yep.
left. Tell me more about the offer you got. So in the end, you got an amazing
Yep.
internship. And what was that offer?
Yeah, sure. So the specific role, I think it was like 5G software baseband developer. So Ericsson's telecommunication company, and that's where the offer is. And so it'll be a lot of work on, I think it'd be a little more low level things. I think there's gonna be some C, C++. I think there's a good amount of Java that's used in the industry as well. So it might be a little bit of that and had some Java projects. So it might be a little bit more of that. We're gonna have to see. Um, and specifically the details of the world kind of projects. I'm trying to like edge them on to give me more details, and I'm like soon gonna kind of like get a talk with the hiring manager. So I don't quite know the details on that. The offer salary is 31.125 dollars. This is a weird thing anyway. Per hour, with $1,000 of relocation, which isn't huge, but hey, like we'll take what you can get, right?
Yeah. And it's a
Yeah,
full
yeah.
term internship too, right? It's not just, 3 months. It's like a whole year long thing plus. So
Yeah,
really
exactly.
good.
It's yeah, so it's a year-long internship as well. And so they really the idea behind that too, a talk that like they really want to like give you a big project, and talking about them was like, yeah, like the year is important because like we're gonna make you a software developer whether you like it or not and stuff like that. So like you're gonna get like a big project, and like at the end of it too, you're gonna have to almost like train up the next cohort of co-op students. So they really want you to like kind of go through the whole process, build you up, and even be able to kind of like take a little bit of leadership at the end. So it seems like they really have a good thing going, and they really want to like train people up to be good software developers. And ultimately, because of my background in electrical engineering, and I'm still taking electrical engineering and computer science, telecommunications is a really good intersection of that. There's a lot of like signal processing and even understanding like networking concepts, the OSI model. That's something you take in your electrical engineering classes, but actually not necessarily software engineering classes. Some do, but it's kind of iffy depending on the university. And so telecommunications, a field I find really interesting and kind of combines my interests in like hardware, software, signals, a little bit more mathy side. And so for me, it was kind of the ideal industry. And when I got the role, I was kind of like shocked, like, oh, holy shit, this is like one of the like, this almost feels perfect because like I was applying to a lot of things, and this was like one of the top 10 in terms of like kind of interest that I had in the role. So like I was really happy ultimately with kind of what I was able to get.
Amazing. Well, congratulations, Laurier, again. Great outcome. Super proud of you, and really quickly as well. So keep me updated if you have any other offers come in. But thank you for doing this. I have another meeting, so I got to let you go.
Yeah,
But
sounds good. Okay, nice on you.